Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream Queen Size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal Queen Size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in, and thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Let's jump right in. The U.S. Supreme Court took steps yesterday to freeze an order from a lower court that would require the Trump administration to return an illegal migrant from an El Salvador prison they claim was sent by mistake. They're not disputing the fact that he was in the U.S. illegally, though. A Texas man who threatened to open fire on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE agents if they came to his neighborhood was charged Monday in federal court. He's not going to like the response that he's about to get. After another wild ride on Wall Street yesterday, it appears Warren Buffett's decision last year to sit on $300 billion in cash to not invest it has paid off. Buffett is the only one of 500 of the richest moguls to not lose money in the latest stock decline. And in less than a month, the South Carolina legislature will adjourn for the year, and there's still no solution for the liquor liability insurance for restaurants and bars. A new group of restaurant owners hopes to create a sense of urgency for South Carolina leaders and encourage them to take action before leaving the state capitol for the year. Carl Sobocinksi, founder and president of Table 301 Hospitality, joins us to discuss this issue today.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent weighed in on America's tariff negotiations again with other countries during a late afternoon appearance on Kudlow yesterday. President Trump unveiled new tariffs on goods imported from foreign countries last week. We know how the markets responded on Friday and again yesterday. Bessent told host Larry Kudlow that Trump is better than anyone at giving himself maximum leverage. So what he has done is we outlined the tariffs on April 2nd and then gave countries several days to think about it, the Treasury Secretary said. Trump reported yesterday that he's talked with Japanese Prime Minister Shiba. Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer have been tapped to head the tariff negotiations with Japan and other countries. Bessent said Trump was going to be directly involved in those negotiations as well.
Understand it from your postings. The president has tasked you and U.S. Trade Rep Jameson Greer to implement the president's vision with respect to negotiations on Japan among our closest allies. So you and Jameson Greer are going to pick up the ball and negotiate with Japan. Can you tell us more? This is a very important development.
Larry, Larry, first of all, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. And it is a very important development. And, I'll tell you that the kind of impatience that we've seen with commentators, with the market over the weekend or since April 2nd has surprised me. And President Trump, as you know, is better than anyone at giving himself maximum leverage. So what he's done is we outlined the tariffs on April 2nd and then gave the countries several days to think about it. As I advised on many shows on April 2nd, I suggested that the foreign officials keep your cool, they do not escalate, and come to us with your offers on how you're going to drop tariffs, how you're going to drop non-tariff barriers, how you're going to stop your currency manipulation, how you're going to stop the subsidized financing. And at a point, President Trump will be ready to negotiate. And he had a very, very productive call with Prime Minister, with the Japanese Prime Minister this morning, and he has asked me and Jameson Greer to take the lead on this. And as you said in your last segment, President Trump is going to be directly involved in those negotiations.
The Treasury Secretary said that he hadn't seen any specific offer from Japan, but he told Kudlow that 50, 60, maybe 70 countries have gotten in contact with the Trump administration looking to negotiate, and yesterday was just the beginning of that process. He told Kudlow that he expected Japan would get priority with negotiations just because they came forward very quickly, he said. He also noted the important military and economic ties between America and Japan. During his appearance, Bessent defended the Trump administration using trade deficits in its calculus for determining reciprocal tariffs on imports from some of the foreign countries. He also noted that academic studies have shown that it's the non-tariff trade barriers that are the real problem in the U.S. having free and fair access to those markets. Meanwhile, U.S. stocks endured a volatile, very volatile, I guess I should say, session yesterday as Wall Street reacted to a barrage of headlines surrounding President Trump's evolving trade policy. The market's roller coaster ride showed the deep investor anxiety about escalating tariffs. Nobody knows how to react, but they feel like they need to take some action. They can't just sit back. And that has caused a lot of the volatility that we've seen. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted 1,300 points again yesterday at the opening, but it was kind of up and down. A brief mid-morning rally yesterday was fueled by reports of a possible 90-day tariff pause. I think it was like CNBC, I think it was CNBC who made the announcement, only to be told later when the White House confirmed that this was fake news, which sent the market tumbling again. By close, the Dow had regained some of its losses, but still ended down 349 points, or 0.9% to 37,966. The index had already lost nearly 4,000 points over the prior two-day trading period since this all started last week. The brief late-day surge was buoyed, though, by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's announcement that he would be leading the upcoming trade negotiations with Japan. In a post on X, Bessent said that President Trump directed him and the U.S. Trade Representative to begin talks with the Japanese Prime Minister, hinting that current tariffs on Japanese goods could be revised. It was just a crazy day yesterday. The European Union is said to be preparing its own response after Trump last week announced a 20% tariff on imports from the 27-nation bloc. EU officials have drafted a phased retaliation plan targeting steel, aluminum, automobiles, and ultimately a 20% levy. A vote on the measure is expected tomorrow. In a statement, the EU Trade Commissioner Marcos Šefčovič said the EU is committed to meaningful negotiations, but also prepared to defend our interests. Elsewhere, nations hit by Trump's tariffs are racing to negotiate before the harsher rates go into effect. Over the weekend, Trump said that he had a very productive call with a top Vietnamese official. That news temporarily boosted stocks for Nike, Adidas, Puma, since Vietnam plays a key role in their supply chain. The confusion and lack of clarity from the Trump administration, according to some of the financial or investor analysts, said that it has increased recession fears. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs raised their odds of a near-term recession to 60% and 45% respectively. President Trump has downplayed market turmoil, stating during the weekend that sometimes you just have to take medicine to fix something. In other tariff news, President Trump yesterday said that he and his officials said that more than 50 countries are offering to negotiate. We saw the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen saying that the European Union is ready to negotiate. Speaking in Brussels yesterday, the head of the EU's executive arm called Trump's economic policy a major turning point for the United States. These tariffs come first and foremost at immense cost for U.S. consumers and businesses, she said, But at the same time, they have a massive impact on the global economy, especially hard-hit are the developing countries. Van der Leyen said that in parallel, we're preparing a potential list for retaliation and other measures, although we hope negotiations can provide a solution. Now, one person that this has not affected, Warren Buffett. Some people question his move last year when he decided to sell stocks and hoard some $300 billion in cash. It's looking like, though, once again, Warren Buffett is the smartest man in the room. He is the only mogul of the world's 10 richest people whose net worth has risen this year despite the market sell-off. We've seen historic numbers these past few days of and the world's 500 wealthiest individuals have collectively lost more than $500 billion, marking the steepest loss ever recorded on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, ever. Among the 10 richest people in the world, Buffett is the only one who's seen his net worth rise since January the 1st. The Berkshire Hathaway's boss wealth increased by $11.5 billion in that period of time. Think about that. Pretty much in the first quarter of the year, your wealth increases $11.5 billion. His strategy, according to analysts, say that it has insulated Buffett and the Berkshire shareholders from the turmoil that we've seen over these past few days. And look, we've always known that Warren Buffett is a smart investor. Once again, he's proven it, because last year when word got out that he was sitting on, $300 billion in cash, people were thinking, well, what's going on? Now, I don't know that he could foresee this tariff war, but he certainly knew something could be up, and that has paid off once again. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Hi, Joey Hudson here. You know, this spring there's a renewed energy and focus on efficiencies, and shaking up unhealthy habits don't serve us well. There's so much chatter about making America great again, but it starts in your home with you being the best, healthiest version of yourself. And PhD Weight Loss is doing their part, because for the first time ever, the first 11 callers get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. That is huge. PhD's out to prove that you don't need Big Pharma to reach your goals. It just creates dependency, not long-term change. Dr. Ashley Lucas researched weight loss trends for years and discovered a scientifically proven way to retrain your body to burn fat efficiently without hunger, extreme exercise, or dangerous medications. PhD clients watch their belly fat disappear, their energy skyrocket, cholesterol and blood pressure normalize without starving themselves. I lost over 30 pounds and I've never felt better. So call now and mention promo code Joey for my 2 weeks for free with my program. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Chief Justice John Roberts issued a temporary stay yesterday, blocking for now a lower court order that required the Trump administration to return by midnight last night a Maryland resident who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador last month, according to reports. Justice Roberts temporarily froze the lower court order from U.S. District Judge Paula Zenas, who had ordered the Trump administration to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who last month was mistakenly sent to El Salvador, and her order was that he'd be returned by 12 a.m. this morning. The government has acknowledged that Mr. Garcia's removal from the U.S. was an administrative error. The filing from Roberts comes after the Trump administration appealed the lower court's decision both to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court yesterday morning in anticipation of the court's decision. Judges on the Fourth Circuit voted unanimously earlier today to reject the Justice Department's request for an administrative stay, which cleared the way for the nation's top court to intervene. Now, the 11th hour pause granted by Roberts gives the Trump administration additional time to comply with the court order requiring that Garcia be returned to the U.S. Roberts ordered that the case be stayed pending further order of the undersigned of the court and asked for a response from plaintiffs by Tuesday night. Lawyers for Garcia responded immediately in a reply brief filed to the Supreme Court, lawyers for Garcia noted that the extraordinary circumstances surrounding his deportation should warrant his return. They told the court this case is one of one. It presents the extraordinary circumstances of the government conceding that it erred in removing Kilmar Armando Garcia to a foreign country for which he was not eligible for removal. They went on to say Garcia has never been charged with a crime in any country. He is not wanted by the government of El Salvador. He sits in a foreign prison solely at the behest of the United States as the product of a mistake. The 11th hour intervention from Roberts comes as the Trump administration has come under intense scrutiny for the deportation flights to El Salvador. They sent roughly 261 migrants, including more than 100 Venezuelan nationals targeted for immediate removal under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act last month. The legality of using a wartime immigration law, of course, immediately was challenged and awaiting a court's decision. A ruling in that case is expected in the coming days. A Texas man who threatened to open fire on U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents if they came to his neighborhood was charged yesterday in a federal court. Robert Wilson King is his name. He's a U.S. citizen. He was arrested in McKinney, Texas, after he made disturbing threats online on March the 29th, according to Homeland Security investigators. On Monday, King appeared in federal court where he was charged with transmitting interstate threats. A judge ordered him held pending a Wednesday detention hearing. He's 35 years old, and the way he ended up in jail is he posted a series of threats on Facebook targeting ICE agents and making disparaging remarks about Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. In the first, King shared a PBS NewsHour article and wrote, "I truly hope, and I mean this with all my heart, that Kristi Noem meets a horrible and agonizing demise. I hope she is tried in a war criminal court with the rest of the Nazis when this is all over, and I hope she is ripped apart in a gulag. Nothing less for a Nazi scum. This is America, now a Nazi fascist state. Disgusting." Now, who in their right mind posts something like that? Now, I know we have free speech. I get that. But you can't, surely you'd be smart enough as an adult, a 35-year-old man would know you can't post threats against the Homeland Security Secretary. I don't care if it's Kristi Noem in the Trump administration or if it was someone in the Biden administration. You just can't post threats against government officials like this. He then wrote a second post where he threatened to target immigration agents. He said, "If I see ICE agents in my neighborhood, I'm opening fire. It's time to stop being," I don't know what that word is. They blanked it out. "And put the Second Amendment to work." Oh, I see what it is now. I can't say it. He says, "ICE are not real cops. They are a secret police force with no real legal authority. Kill them." ICE is not cops? ICE? Really? You don't think that they have authority? I think you're about to find out what authority they do have. And again, who posts threats like this about ICE agents or any law enforcement agents on Facebook? He later doubled down. Wow, this guy's just an idiot. He said, "Just want to double down on what I said the other day. If ICE comes to your neighborhood, effing shoot them and kill them. No mercy for the Gestapo." Ms. Noem had previously issued a stern warning after a similar threat was made by someone on TikTok. She wrote on X, she said, "If you threaten or attempt to harm a law enforcement officer, we will fine you and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law." And I think she's about to make an example of this person, don't you? I don't know that he's going to see the light of day for a while. Now, is this wrong? Is it wrong that this guy is being prosecuted for these threats? I mean, that doesn't fall in freedom of speech, right? You agree with that? Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Text me. Leave me a quick message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Some good news for the Trump administration. The U.S. Supreme Court yesterday handed President Trump a victory by letting him use a 1798 law that historically has been employed only in wartime to swiftly deport alleged Venezuelan gang members as part of the Republican president's hardline approach to immigration. A campaign promise that he would get illegals out of our country quickly. The court granted the administration's request to lift the Washington-based U.S. judge, none other than James Boasberg's March 15th order that temporarily blocked the summary deportations under Trump's invocation. You know, this is the judge who ordered the planes to return. They did not. He was threatening to find the Trump administration in contempt of court. Don't guess that's going to happen now. The Supreme Court says, yep, the Trump administration can use this Alien Enemies Act. In a legal challenge that was handled by the American Civil Liberties Union, a group of Venezuelan men in the custody of U.S. immigration authorities on the same day sued on behalf of themselves and others in similar situations. They were trying to block the deportations. They argued, among other things, that Trump's order exceeded his powers because the Alien Enemies Act authorizes removals only when war has been declared or the United States has been invaded. Of course, Trump argued that they were terrorists, that they're gang members. The Alien Enemies Act authorizes the president to deport, detain, or place restrictions on individuals whose primary allegiance is to a foreign power and who might pose a national security risk in wartime. They fit the bill. Boasberg, of course, a Democrat appointee, President Barack Obama graced us with him. He temporarily blocked the deportations. Trump allowed two planes that were already in the air to continue to El Salvador, where American officials handed 238 Venezuelan men over to Salvadorian authorities to be placed in the Central American country's terrorism confinement center. The judge also has scrutinized whether the Trump administration violated his order by failing to return the deportation flights after his order was issued. Justice Department lawyers said the flights had already left U.S. airspace by the time Judge Boasberg issued his written order. We've talked about this for, a couple of weeks now. Of course, the Trump administration argued that Boasberg's temporary ban encroached on presidential authority to make national security decisions. On March 18th, Trump called for Boasberg's impeachment by Congress. That drew a rebuke from U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts. Trump on social media called Boasberg, who was confirmed by the U.S. Senate in 2011 in a bipartisan 96-0 vote, a radical left lunatic and a troublemaker and agitator. The D.C. Circuit upheld Boasberg's order after holding a contentious hearing that involved heated language. Judge Patricia Millett told Justice Department lawyer Drew Ensign that Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemies Act than has happened here. Family members of many of the deported Venezuelan migrants, of course, are denying that they have gang ties. One said that a tattoo that was on his loved one's arm was meant to honor his favorite team, his favorite soccer team, and it was not related to any type of gang. I don't think they're going to be coming back, though. This new book out, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. And by the way, I got my copy in the mail. After all these little leaks of what all was in it, I couldn't stand it. I had to order a copy. We're now learning that a communications director for former Vice President Kamala Harris created a so-called death pool roster of federal judges appointed by a Republican that could swear her in if, in fact, President Joe Biden suddenly died. This is a revelation made in the book. It's published last week by William Morrow and Company. It claims that Harris's White House communications director, Jamal Simmons, crafted an entire communication strategy to employ in the event of Joe Biden's death. They're like a bunch of vultures flying around Biden, hoping, I guess, that he fell over The book is authored by political journalists Jonathan Allen of NBC News and Amy Parnes of The Hill. Said that Simmons imagined that losing Biden unexpectedly would be akin to when Lyndon Johnson was sworn in on Air Force One following John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963. But he worried that people would question her legitimacy as president and was specifically concerned that, quote, Trump people would go apes if Harris became president. Well, of course we would go ape. None of us wanted Kamala Harris to be president. The book says Simmons believed Harris would be strengthened by an institutional stamp of approval if she were sworn in hurriedly because Biden had died unexpectedly. Her legitimacy might be questioned, he worried, recalling the January 6th effort to stop Biden from being certified as president. As a result, Simmons created a spreadsheet of various judges who had been nominated by Republicans who might be equipped to help bolster her legitimacy. He wrote the strongest validator, he believed, would be a federal judge who had been appointed by a Republican other than Trump. He compiled a spreadsheet of those jurists across the country down to a city-by-city breakdown and carried it with him when he traveled with Harris. They were ready. They were ready if they got the news that Joe Biden had died out on the beach, that they would, regardless of where they were, they would have a list of judges that could swear her in quickly. Simmons said he never told Harris about the so-called death pool roster before his departure with her communications team in January 2023. However, he instructed colleagues to notify him immediately if something did happen to Biden so he could implement the communication strategy. Ultimately, Simmons left the spreadsheet with another Harris staffer, according to the book. The book did not specify which judges were included on the list. I haven't had a chance to start reading it yet. But with all these nice little tidbits that we're getting, I can't wait to jump in. Harris, of course, served as a senator from California. Did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Of course she didn't. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are ever in the same room again together, some of the conversations they're going to have? Wonder what Joe Biden thinks about the fact that she had her vulture circling him, waiting for him to die, and was ready to jump in, even to the point that they had a list of judges. Now, granted, it probably was a pretty good idea. I mean, I don't know that some federal judge appointed by George Bush is going to give any degree of legitimacy to Kamala Harris, because nobody was going to like that anyway. None of us were going to accept that, right? But it's probably smart for them to think that way, because we certainly would object if it was an Obama or a Biden-appointed judge. We would think that something on the inside had happened. But hey, the truth is, if Joe Biden had fallen over before the end of his term, she would have rightly become president. That's the succession plan. That's what the vice president's for. The book also includes details revealing how Barack Obama remained hesitant to back Harris in 2024. And that's what I want to get to. I want to get to some of the gritty details on how they ended up getting Barack Obama to endorse her when it was pretty clear he did not think she was a candidate. He didn't think she could win. According to the book, Obama didn't believe Harris could beat President Trump. And in the end, that proved to be true, didn't it? That proved to be correct. That shows you that Barack Obama, I guess, does have a little bit of political savvy. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. As you know, we've talked quite a bit about liquor liability insurance and the crisis that the bar and restaurant industry has faced over the past few years. It's gotten so bad that some businesses have had to close their doors after many years of serving their communities. We've had state legislators on the show. We've had representatives from the chamber, other state policy organizations. And the current situation is this. The state house has passed a bill that's presently in the Senate. The South Carolina Senate passed their version, which is a more extensive overall of liability laws, and it's over in the South Carolina House. But unless something is done pretty quickly, these two bills will remain in limbo as legislators are set to leave Columbia on May the 8th. Now, there's a relatively new group that's joined the discussion, known as the Responsible Hospitality Reform Alliance. This new statewide effort is being led by some of South Carolina's prominent hospitality groups, one of which is here in the upstate, Table 301 Hospitality, or you may recognize him as the owner of Sobeys and the Lazy Goat, Nosedive, and others. Carl Sobocinksi is the president and founder of Table 301, and he's been a leader in the upstate hospitality world for more than 25 years now, and Carl joins us on our guest line. Welcome, Carl. How are you?
I'm doing great, Joey. Thanks for having me, and thanks for pointing out that we are down to the wire with these folks in Columbia.
Yeah, it has been a long process, and we have followed it very closely. This is a tough issue, Carl, and I know you've watched it closely as well. Before we get into the work that the Responsible Hospitality Reform Alliance is doing, give our listeners an overview of how we got to where we are.
Yeah, so I think if you go all the way back to 2005, there was some legislation passed that really got us to this point where we've become known as the one drink state. And I won't go into a lot of detail on that at this point, but we can do some research on that if you're interested. And then in 2017, the legislature passed a mandatory $1 million liquor liability requirement for all bars, restaurants, no matter the size, the volume of business, if they were serving after 5 p.m. So it took several years for the rates to really increase from that legislation in 2017. But now they've since 2022, roughly, they've really started to impact the bars and restaurants. And listen, it's a tough enough business as it is. We operate on about single-digit margins, so 5 to 7, 8% to the bottom line is standard for a standalone local restaurant. And so you start cutting into that number with an increase, doubling a liquor liability, general liability insurance premium. All of a sudden your business becomes tougher and tougher.
Yeah, and it has been tough to the point, as I mentioned, we've seen a number of bars and restaurants close over this past year especially. You're probably like me and others a bit frustrated that it's taken this long. So talk with us about your new group and how do you think the Responsible Hospitality Reform Alliance can make a difference?
Yeah, so Responsible Hospitality Reform, we formed last fall, basically after a year of going down to Columbia, a handful of us that are restaurant operators. And, like I said, every day we're just trying to hit that 5 to 8% profit margin. We're trying to keep our doors open. We create a lot of jobs. And we realized after being down there last year that we really don't know all of the ins and outs of how Columbia works, and that we needed some professionals on our side. So we formed a small group. We put up some money, each of us, so that we could afford a lobbyist and an attorney. We're working with the Sweatman Strategies, Lisa Sweatman, and attorney Sean Blake out of Columbia. And they have been fabulous at kind of guiding us through the process. And now our role is to really show up and to talk to our legislators, make phone calls and emails, and then literally share that with the other restaurateurs, bar owners, venues around the state. And so having their guidance it's paramount. We couldn't have done this on our own, and we certainly can't read what's what's in these bills, beyond the first line or two, because it gets pretty into the weeds down there. And so Sean Blake's been great at guiding us through what language is in there, and actually having a seat at the table on subcommittee and with leadership in both the House and the Senate.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Carl, the Senate passed their version. It's a little more extensive and covers liability beyond the restaurant and bar industry. The House bill is more focused on liquor liability and the restaurant and bar industry. Do you guys have a preference of which bill you would rather see passed?
We really don't. Our preference and our message, and I would encourage your listeners to pick up the phone or email your representative and let them know that they really should not go home on May 8th without doing something for the hospitality industry. So at this point, the House bill passed unanimously through the House, and it's in the Senate. Our own local Senator Ross Turner's put his name on it so that right now it can't move. He has told me that he's going to take his name off of it and strike through it and send it back to the House, essentially with 244, which, again, I'm just a restaurant guy. I don't understand all of what happens in Colombia, but we've just encouraged Ross to get some movement on that bill. But again, at the end of the day, either one would bring relief to our industry, and right now we can't afford to not have some relief for our industry.
Yeah. I've had Senator Turner on the show. Of course, he's in the insurance business, so he joked with me, Carl, and said, of all the issues we cover here in the Senate, I felt like that I was the expert in the room when we were talking about this, and he probably has a point there. He shared something with me, Carl, when we were talking about this, and he talked about the ISO, their insurance rating, and that's how insurance is rated based on your ISO number. And he was talking about that Virginia has the lowest ISO ratings, but basically Virginia takes the way they approach it is not who actually serves the alcohol, but who consumes the alcohol. And that has seemed to do real well for their liability insurance there.
I think that would make sense in a lot of states. I don't know in a state that has joint and several issues and strict liability issues like South Carolina that would make a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Again, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but I know as much as I know. And while I understand a little bit about the ISO ratings, I know Alabama recently passed some dram shop laws and toughened up their DUI laws, which both of these bills have, and we are 100% in favor of that. But their ISO rating did not drastically change immediately. I think we're still waiting to see what happens with it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the House version of this bill. Basically, they're focusing on the liquor liability. They are decreasing the maximum amount to, or I guess I should say the minimum amount to $1 million, I think, down to $500,000. One question that I've asked a couple of state representatives I've had on the show is, will this make insurance rates go down? And I ask, has anyone actually done a comparison? Take an existing policy at $1 million limits and a new policy at $500,000, and do you see a big rate decrease? And Carl, no one has done that to my knowledge.
No, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've had the legislature and our association, we've had a hard time getting, real good evidence and data from the insurance industry. But the status quo is not working. And we elect these folks to go down to Columbia and pass legislation and work for us. And at this point, we have to try something. So, if you want to look at the House Bill 3497, it does make alcohol training for all servers, bartenders mandatory. Many of us already do that. Quite frankly, when I sign my liquor liability policy, and it requires that in there. And there's no oversight, I guess, but I check a box that confirms that I do that, and I'm not going to check a box if we're not doing it. And I believe most of my peers are in the same situation. But it makes it mandatory. It addresses strict liability. It addresses joint and several, and perhaps most importantly, it stiffens and toughens our drunk driving DUI laws.
Yeah. With me today, Carl Sobocinksi, president and founder of Table 301 Hospitality in Greenville. So, Carl, let's just talk about where you're headed from here. I mean, what can our listeners do other than the fact, I guess you're right, we need to call our state rep, our state senators, and say, don't come home until you get something done here. What would you hope to see happen in the next few weeks?
Yeah, so we actually just got off of our weekly call, and they go on furlough, I think, next week for Easter, and then they come back on Monday, April 21st. And as most of your listeners probably know, they arrive in Columbia on Tuesday. They set a schedule. They work on Wednesday, and by 1 o'clock Thursday, they're usually home. And so we've got the week of the 21st, the week of the 8th, and then the first week of May. So we are down to just a handful of days, and something's got to pass out of one chamber and back over to the other. So again, I would just encourage, if you care about your local businesses, your favorite bar or restaurant where you like to have, join with family and friends and enjoy a nice meal and some drinks, please reach out to your local representatives and senators and encourage them, that this is what we elect you to do. Get the job done. Do not leave on May 8th without passing one of these bills and helping these small businesses that are vital to our community and to our state.
Yeah. Carl Sobocinski, thank you for your time. Appreciate the leadership position you're taking on this issue. It's important to a lot of people around the state. And, hey, we'll check back with you as we get closer to the 8th.
Thanks, Joey. I hope we can talk again on the 9th and have some good news for everybody.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.